Welcome to the Be Wise Podcast. I am your host, Chris Y. Wright, and welcome to the show. But today we're going to look into a movement divided, a movement that has touched me in many different ways, caused a lot of emotions, has split me in the court of opinion from my peers, people who used to agree with me on everything, and I used to agree with them. But that's long gone. That ship has sailed. It's a movement divided. So we're talking about Charlie Kirk. And before we get started, go ahead and press that like, subscribe. Really appreciate it. Trying to grow the channel because, as you know, YouTube is hard. So Charlie Kirk is dead. And he was the face of Turning Point USA, a man who built this digital empire. He was assassinated. But while the court systems prepare for the trial of this 22-year-old Tyler Robinson, a second trial is happening in the court of public opinion. And the lead prosecutor isn't a lawyer. It's, of course, as you know, Candace Owens. So today we're going to break down the investigation into Erika Kirk, the internal wars at TPUSA, and the explosive and highly controversial claims that the Israeli government, not a lone shooter, pulled the trigger and is pulling the strings to cover it up. So we ask ourselves, or what's been asked all over social media, is Candace Owens a grieving friend seeking justice or an opportunist spreading blood libel for clicks? You know, let's look at the facts as they stand. So Tyler Robinson, he's in custody. He's facing, aggravated murder charges. And TPUSA leadership is 100% confident that Robinson is the guy. They've seen the evidence. They've seen the text messages. But Candace Owens, she's just not buying it. And today, I'm going to show you a series of videos. It's going to be a little disjointed. I don't have any particular order, but I just kind of want you to see where everyone's head is at. And we will definitely be talking about various things. We're going to hear from Candace Owens, Megyn Kelly, Jimmy Dorey, Baron Coleman, Ben Shapiro, and of course the TPUSA gang, and just kind of get an idea of where everyone's at. And TPUSA, they're just very frustrated right now because what they're feeling is, with all this noise in the air and all of these people that have these opinions and all these, I don't even want to call them conspiracy theories, but all these theories that are out there currently, they think that it's tainting the trial, that it's going to affect the defense or the prosecution of Tyler Robinson. So it's just extremely, extremely interesting. But right from the very beginning, I mean, there is even someone that's on the prosecution that they want to just throw it out. And it's just so weird how we got here. I don't know. Let's look at this video. TPUSA is frustrated.
Blake is just unleashed. He lets his hair, he doesn't have a lot of hair, down in this clip. Take a listen.
Some people are so obsessed
There it is.
with these same conspiracies that they concoct for every other thing that ever happens. And so they have to shove it into this one too, because they care more about their conspiracy theories than about the person who murdered my friend facing justice. I am fed up with it.
Here's why it's so frustrating, is because there is going to be even more evidence that is presented to the public in May at the evidentiary hearing, okay? And it's a mountain of evidence, some of which has been made public, some of which has not been made public yet. And the prosecution is going to lay out its case against Tyler Robinson. And I'm told it's a whopper. I'm told they've got this guy dead to rights. And meanwhile, you have government officials that are now saying on the record to journalists they are willing to testify on behalf of the defense to get, ostensibly, to get Tyler Robinson off the hook for something that he did. And so the level of betrayal that I currently feel is dramatic.
Oh, Pardon my French. They're just so full of shit, right? They're just like, it's like, they're not even good. They're not even good. So they're saying there shouldn't even be a trial. He's so guilty. And the idea that anybody would tell the truth on the defense side, they're overwhelmed because the evidence is so overwhelming. It gets bigger every time they talk, by the way. Now it's a mountain of evidence. It's a mountain. So undeniable that if Joe Kent simply told the truth and said, yeah, I would have liked to investigate some other leads, and I was blocked from doing that, it would all fall apart, as mountains do. You know me. If you just go stand up next to a mountain and tell the truth, the whole thing will crumble in front of you. It'll be like Building 7. Just emotionally just collapse and probably have Israel behind it. Truly. That's what I would say.
So Candace isn't buying it, and she's digging her heels in. And it's caused a lot of friction and controversy and vitriol all over the internet. Owens has publicly trashed the evidence released by the Utah prosecutors. You know, she's caused the text messages between Robinson and his roommates obnoxious and federally written, like she's blaming the government for crafting text messages. She says these messages were manufactured by deep state actors to frame a patsy. You know what a patsy is? Think Lee Harvey Oswald. But the counter says, her critics say Owens is just simply muttering darkly, without a single physical receipt. Now, I watch Candace Owens every night. I think she brings some pretty good arguments. I think she brings pretty good evidence. But I guess they're veiled in secrecy, or she can't always tell who her sources are. But her critics also, they argue that she's using her brotherly bond with Charlie Kirk to pretend, she has this inside info that doesn't actually exist. That's what her critics say. Man, it's getting crazy out there. It is getting crazy. Like I said, I'm just going to show you some videos here and there and just talk about how different people are viewing this whole thing.
Andrew Colvett and Blake Neff, who were also on this show 2 weeks ago, who worked for Charlie and are now doing Charlie's show in the wake of his death, were not happy with that exchange between Schellenberger and Joe Kent. And here's some of their reaction yesterday.
I'd be shocked if Robinson's attorneys don't use this.
Well, of course, this is the obvious result of this.
That's what infuriates me, is he's like he's like someone who's vague posting on Facebook, where he's like, ooh, there's things I might know. People should know I might.
But I can't tell you what those are.
But I can't say what you actually think happened.
This really does have a potential to not only taint a jury pool, but to undermine the very prosecution of Tyler Robinson, who I am 100% convinced pulled the trigger and killed Charlie Kirk. I am for asking questions. This is why I shared the group chat with Joe Kent in the first place. I'm not afraid of the answer to those questions. If Israel had a hand in killing Charlie, I want to know. What I'm telling you is that we've had 6 months plus since that time to track down all those leads, none of which have been corroborated, none of which have actionable evidence behind. You have to have facts, and the recklessness with which these accusations are being thrown out now has real-world implications.
I completely understand Andrew and Blake being upset about this. They do not want to do anything to shore up Tyler Robinson's defense, and I grant them total and complete grace on that reaction. But as a legal matter, they really don't need to worry. In case after case after case, we have seen very, very ubiquitous media coverage, and it can be handled in voir dire by prosecutors. That's what they will do. That's what they would have done in the Brian Kohlberger trial, where they would have explored the many, many media exposés on the case and the many, many theories that were circulating all over social media that Kohlberger didn't do it. There's a large faction that maintains that to this day. They were very loud on social media and had all sorts of theories and podcasts and so on about how he wasn't the killer. Now he's, of course, admitted he was, but that was something that the prosecutors were going to have to deal with. And prosecutors state to state in today's day and age have to deal with that anyway, because it's a true crime community now. It's growing and it's very popular. And it happens in cases that you know about and cases that you don't, where there are very strong local there's very strong local interest in it and becomes a podcast thing or internet fodder in some way, shape, or form, it can be dealt with taint. But the notion that it's going to go beyond that it's going to undermine the very prosecution of Tyler Robinson, as Andrew said. And he said, who I'm 100% convinced pulled the trigger and killed Charlie. Me too. Same. And Andrew and I have talked about it many times, privately and publicly. The notion that it's going to undermine the prosecution, I think, is incorrect.
So Megan has stayed above the fray. She's not really taking a side, but she's kind of going by the Occam's razor philosophy that it's not as deep as you guys think. There is no rabbit hole. Tyler Robinson pulled the trigger. That's it. There's nothing else to see here. But I'm going to say this a few times today. Candace Owens isn't buying it. That's why she started the investigation of Erika Kirk. And she's saying that, hey, listen, Erika Kirk is fair game. We would investigate any other CEO of any major corporation, any billion-dollar corporation. We would look into them if things seem just a little bit fishy. You know? So Candace Owens, she's turned her lens towards the widow, of course, Erika Kirk, and the inner workings of TPUSA. And TPUSA doesn't like being the target. While Candace Owens frames this as an investigation, TPUSA frames this as a betrayal to Charlie Kirk. They fear that Owens' narrative will mislead Tyler Robinson's case, as we just talked about. It's going to create reasonable doubt and ultimately set a guilty man free. I don't see it that way, but that's the way TPUSA sees it. You know? And then now there's the Israel connection. Now, here's where the story takes a dark historical turn. While Donald Trump and J.D. Vance initially pointed at the radical left, Candace Owens is pushing a different theory, a global conspiracy with Israel at the center. Right? Then you got Candace Owens and influencers like, Ian Carroll and Jackson Hinkle. They suggest that Kirk was killed because he was wavering on Israel. And they point to one, Kirk's invitations to Tucker Carlson and Dave Smith. They were vocal critics in the war in Gaza. And then Charlie Kirk's own comments regarding Jewish donors and anti-whiteness funding. And then, of course, there's the hard right narrative. Charlie Kirk was becoming too dangerous to Israel and too dangerous to Israeli interests. So he was removed. That's the theory. And for a bystander or for a spectator, we're all like, that's a good point. Wait a minute. That's a good point also. Wow, Candace made sense. Huh. Megyn Kelly, she's an attorney. That makes sense. We're all over the place with our brains, and it's just become a show. So, and then Joe Kent. We'll get to that. But Joe Kent, since he resigned as counterterrorism leader in the White House, he's just added a whole other layer to this. But we'll talk about that. See what Jim Dory has to say.
Erika didn't choose this, man.
100,000% she chose this. She always wanted to be a public person. That's why she went on reality dating shows. That's why she started a movie with all those people from Fort Huachuca. That's why she became a beauty queen. That's why when she was 17 years old, she went to work at an orphanage helping trafficking victims. That's why she became the CEO of now a $250 million company, which is going to become probably $1 billion company. And you're not supposed to criticize her or point out when she's lying or that everything in her past reads like a CIA psyop. She 100% asked for this. So Dan Bongino's jumping off point is complete and utter garbage. Complete BS. 100% BS, a lie. She is a public person. She's not a quiet private wife grieving her husband. She definitely deserves scrutiny, and she's definitely asking for this. And for you to say not to do that sounds very much like saying don't do your own research. Trust the science. Trust the experts. Dr. Fauci is a saint. That's what this sounds like.
Imagine sitting there in your house and you find out from Twitter or, I don't know, a text or a phone call or that your husband was just shot in the neck for the entire world to see on social media at a public event.
Debatable. Was he shot with a 30-06, Mr. Former Deputy Director of the FBI? Was he shot with a 30-06? Is that what you're saying? Because that's what you said. So we know that didn't happen. We know you're lying about that.
Dan Bongino inserted himself into the conversation, and I thought Jim Dory ate him up. But you got all these things being released. X, formerly Twitter. People are putting like receipts on there. Bibi Netanyahu is coming out of his role as a leader of Israel, making comments. Bill Ackman actually released like cordial text with Charlie Kirk to prove that there were no threats. Bibi Netanyahu, he issued 2 separate denials, calling the rumors insane and outrageous. It's nuts. It's absolute chaos. You know, you're going to believe the truth or you're going to believe your eyeballs. And that's kind of what Candace stands are. Candace stands are saying, wow, I believe what I hear. I believe my eyeballs. See, she's showing me text messages, emails, letters. I mean, let's talk about Candace Owens' popularity. She's like #1 on Spotify, right behind Charlie Kirk's original podcast, which is now memorialized. So not only do her YouTube videos get 1 to 2 million views a day, 5 to 8 million a week, but her podcast is #1 or #2 on Spotify. You know, there's literacy experts who calls this a disgusting opportunism. While the body is barely cold, the right-wing's ecosystem is flooded with themed merchandise, recruitment drives, cosplaying Kirk, all this stuff that TPUSA is doing. Every influencer, from Megyn Kelly to Vivek Ramaswamy, is trying to claim a piece of the TPUSA mantle. I don't know. Let's watch another video here. Let's see. I wanted to show you Joe Kent, who the counterterrorism chief.
And the last time I saw Charlie Kirk on this earth was in June in the West Wing in the stairway, and I said hi to him, and he said, "Joe, stop us from getting into a war with Iran." We know the pressure because of the text messages that have been made public, that Charlie was under a lot of pressure from a lot of pro-Israel donors. And again, we know Charlie was advocating to President Trump against this war with Iran. But the investigation that I was a part of, the National Counterterrorism Center was a part of, we were stopped from continuing to investigate.
You would think that him sitting down with Tucker and revealing this would shock the senses of Turning Point USA, that it would shock the senses of his wife. They would go, what? Get Cash on the phone immediately. I need to speak to Cash, but I would need to know why he was stopped, why Joe Kent was stopped from investigating. I demand to know why this happened. And then they should further demand that investigation to take place, right? Was there foreign involvement? But that's, of course, not what is going to happen following his appearance. That's never how it works with Turning Point USA. They always forget how to just pretend that they aren't guilty.
What? Nah, I never knew that.
Alex Clark, best known for posing in high boots on top of Charlie's vigil site just a mere days after he was assassinated, she had this to say on X. She said, Joe Kent is clearly no friend to Charlie, as he has actively participated and or egged on behind the scenes in the degradation of his wife. How anyone could defend him in any way after that disgusts me. Fake friends. Obviously, what's missing from that is any proof, right? I have never heard from any person that Joe Kent egged on anyone going after Erika Kirk. In fact, in terms of public commentators who have gone after Erika Kirk, they normally loop me in with Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly. I stand alone in that group. Joe Kent has 6 Bronze Star medals with 5 oak leaf clusters across 11 combat deployments as a Green Beret in some of the biggest battles of the GWOT. And they were infuriated. You should see the comments under this. They couldn't stand this. You cannot say anything good about Joe Kent. Laura jumps in and says, why are you defending a known leaker who is undermining President Trump? There is now speculation that Joe Kent may have been leaking information to Candace Owens for the purpose of attacking Mrs. Erika Kirk. What are you doing? Okay, I can tell you right now that is completely untrue. Joe Kent did not leak me anything for the purpose of attacking Erika Kirk. But here is what's even more interesting, okay? They don't realize that they're implying that Erika Kirk is guilty of something. The implication is that him leaking something harmed Erika Kirk. They're not saying he is a liar. They're saying he is a leaker.
You know, this circle started very small. It was Candace Owens. And like she said, she stood alone. And then people wouldn't condemn her. And Tucker Carlson was like, well, by the way, you see the SNL thing of Tucker Carlson. What are we doing? What's going on? Anyway, I'm sorry. I digress. But then Tucker Carlson says, I'm not going to condemn Candace. In fact, I'm going to have her on my show. And he did. Then Ben Shapiro from the Daily Wire looked at Megyn and going, aren't you going to say that Candace is disgusting? And Megyn says, no. I mean, she says a lot. I'm not saying I believe everything she says, but she has some interesting things that we should look into. And then the circle just got bigger, and Jim Dory, Baron Coleman, Dan Bongino got into the fold. Matt Walsh, Ben Shapiro, like everybody. And here's the crazy part. 4 years ago, they all were Trump supporters. And now it's like a civil war of the right. Everyone's all over the place, and you don't know who to believe. The Officer Tatum, he has his view. So, like I said, it's a big mess. Fists flying, blood flying everywhere. I want to take a quick look at Tucker Carlson, talk about him for a second. So, at Charlie Kirk's funeral, do you call it a funeral, celebration, memorial? I don't know what you want to call it. All I know is there was fireworks and sparkly outfits and everything going on, bands and music and country music, and there was a lot going on at Charlie Kirk's funeral. And Tucker Carlson, he didn't name names, but he compared Charlie Kirk's death to that of Jesus, blaming guys sitting around eating hummus, wanting to stop a truth teller. And rabbis in Arizona have called his bigoted blood libel. That's what they call it, a bigoted blood libel. It's just a classic Tucker Carlson move, saying the thing without actually saying the thing. And he was like, can we trust anything? You know? It's just, like I said, it's getting more weird by the minute. More weird by the minute.
Vile piece of human debris, Candace Owens has released a trailer for her new series attacking Erika Kirk, the widow of Charlie Kirk. She has been suggesting for a while that TPUSA was complicit, if not in the murder of Charlie Kirk, then in the cover-up of the murder of Charlie Kirk. This is the stuff that Candace Owens has been doing. She is a conspiratorial, evil person, because that's who would do something like this. Where are Charlie's friends? When the signs are there for years on end, and people say nothing, and people continue to say nothing today, that's cowardice. And for all the people who are watching Candace stitch together a bunch of specious nonsense because they like the gossip of it, please have some more respect for yourself than that, because what she's doing is evil. And when you watch her show, she gets paid to do that evil. She is making money off the murder of Charlie Kirk by literally implicating his widow and everyone else at TPUSA in that murder, and then trying to dig up pseudo dirt on the wife of the person who was murdered. I don't know what to call that other than evil trash. Candace Owens is an evil, twisted human being.
Let's be honest, Ben. Everybody's making money off the death of Charlie Kirk. including TPUSA. They're selling hats, T-shirts, merchandise. They ran out of merchandise. T-shirts with Charlie Kirk with the fist in the air. Hats, everything. They ran out of hats. There are some people that ordered merchandise that haven't even got their merchandise yet. And they were ordered 6 months ago. So, Ben Shapiro, you're making money off Charlie Kirk. Candace Owens' podcasts have definitely blown up. She's making money off the death of Charlie Kirk. Megyn Kelly, Tucker Carlson. Anybody who talks about Charlie, me even today, although I'm not making any money, but me talking today will probably get a lot of views, especially after I splice it into shorts and whatnot. I'm going to get a lot of attention. Charlie Kirk was a polarizing character. Like I said, Dan Bongino jumped into the fold. He's making money off it. All of the guys. Because we're living in a shock doctrine, you know? It's a shock doctrine environment. On one hand, you have agencies led by like Kash Patel and Dan Bongino when he was there before he retired or resigned, who many on the left and right find hard to trust. And on the other side, you have these influencers who admit it. They're opportunists. Everybody's an opportunist. You get into being a content creator for money. You don't do it as a hobby like me. But am I on TikTok trying to make money? 100%. So I look for topics and conversations that's going to resonate with a larger audience so I can get my 50 cents this week. So let's do a reality check. You know, TPUSA's fear. If Owens succeeds in muddying the waters, justice for Tyler Robinson's alleged crimes vanish. And Megyn Kelly said that's not going to happen. But Owens, her gamble is, if she can't produce a single receipt in the next month, she risks alienating the very base she's trying to lead. But I don't really think that's true. I watch her every night for entertainment purposes. People keep telling me, my friend tells me, why are you going down this rabbit hole? I said, Candace Owens' show is extremely, extremely entertaining. And it just is. But this is what Turning Point USA is worried about.
Turning Point USA chapter at the University of Arkansas announcing it is rebranding and disaffiliating with the national group. The chapter's president said in a statement posted on social media, the executive board had become concerned with the direction of the national group. Says the chapter will now be rebranding to Young American Revival, focusing on advocating for Christian conservative values. Comes a week after Turning Point's CEO, Erika Kirk, paid a visit to Arkansas. Governor Sanders signed a proclamation endorsing TPUSA chapters in schools statewide.
So this is fantastic news. It's great news. But beyond that, you should know that this was a unanimous decision. Everyone on the board agreed that they wanted to move away from Turning Point USA. Dino, he's not just a person that just signed up and is causing some drama. He's been there for 5 years. And incredibly, he would very much know, and I'm going to guess it's going to be him understanding how Charlie was pulling away on the topic of Israel, because Dino Fontegrassi in July was a part of that sit down that Charlie did where he discussed Israel and Gaza. He sort of just set up with a bunch of students and tried to get their opinion to show donors, like, you can't treat these kids like this. It's the direction, you know, the direction of wind, it's just changing.
How many of you guys think when a lawmaker and a man I respect like Ted Cruz uses the Bible to justify aid to Israel, doesn't even know the verse, do you guys think that's like not the best way to approach this? Raise your hand.
I find prophecy as policy generally to be theologically problematic. I mean, there's plenty of things that the Bible says that have been done throughout parts of history that certainly a nation state doing today we would see as a bit of a problem. When it comes to sending these, what you said, $300 billion
19, yeah, just with inflation, yeah,
to any foreign country, all I can think about is across our own southern border, we have an actual military in the form of the cartel that kill thousands of people, and that's leaving out the hundreds of thousands of Americans that have died to drug overdoses due to drugs that have come across our southern border. And it's insulting that that money goes anywhere else because we have such a huge problem here.
And so they know They know how Charlie felt. Actually, he was also on the Charlie Kirk show. I believe he was on it actually after Charlie Kirk was assassinated. So when he is coming forward and he is saying something is not right, they are pretending Charlie would want stuff that I know that Charlie would not want. People need to listen.
And that troubles TPUSA. They feel that there's just too much noise in the air. There's too much Candace. There's too much Jimmy Dore, too much Baron Cohen, and it's making them rethink. And it's even affecting Donald Trump. Because Donald Trump went and put her, Erika Kirk, on the Air Force board or something like that. And they're like, what are you doing, President Trump? We didn't vote for this. We voted for America first. Now you're at war. Gas prices are going up. Inflation, and you're defending and supporting TPUSA and Erika Kirk when you know, or we know, there's something nefarious about this that should be looked into. So the one thing that's certain is that the Unity of MAGA movement died the same day Charlie Kirk did. Many people are really pissed off about that. Since the assassination of Charlie Kirk on September 10th, 2025, this investigation has spiraled into one of the most complex and vitriolic media events in modern history. You know? And you got this legal case that's going through the court system with Tyler Robinson. There's this digital investigation led by Candace Owens, and it's just created a massive rift within the conservative movement. And I just don't know how to fix it. If you know, let me know in the comments. I have no idea.
Why do you think Charlie Kirk said just 2 days before he died that he was left with no choice but to leave the pro-Israel cause? Because despite spending years pandering to people like Ben Shapiro and Josh Hammer, who despise Christianity and despise Christians and view us as merely a means to their own end, Charlie never could have any peace. Whatever Charlie was willing to do was never enough. And he knew this wasn't conservatism. He recognized it for what it was. It was a power play. He knew conservatives were being brainwashed and used to prop up the interests of Ben Shapiro, Josh Hammer, and the donors who paid hundreds of millions of dollars propping up those two and more like them. And Charlie was done with it. And I'm done with it. And millions more like me are done with it. Because if this is the future of conservatism in America, you can count me out. I will not be led by anyone who prioritizes anyone other than Jesus Christ and who places any place other than the United States of America in a priority position. It is now a purity test for me. Unless and until candidates tell me they are both Christian and America first, I will not vote for them.
Baron Coleman was very, very upfront and direct about that. But this is why there's a rift in the right-wing conservative movement, because they just feel that MAGA is not pushing the agenda, the initiative that they campaigned on. Donald Trump's not. And all these right-wing conspiracies, like Candace Owens says, I'm out. I'm not doing this Republican Democrat thing anymore. I'm not doing this right-wing, left-wing thing anymore. I'm just going to speak the truth as I see it. And that's kind of where we're at with it. I mean, we're at this point, like, you know, Tyler Robinson's defense team, they recently attempted to disqualify a Utah County attorney's office. They argued that, you know, because the deputy prosecutor's child was in the audience at the UVU rally, that the office had this emotional bias that led to, you know, rush to seek the death penalty. It was the news clip on that. I found it kind of interesting.
will be allowed to proceed with its death penalty case against Tyler Robinson, the man accused of killing Charlie Kirk. The judge making the ruling today following arguments that prosecutors mishandled a potential conflict of interest. The National News Desk, Jeff Harris, joins us. And Jeff, we know that potential conflict of interest involves one of the prosecutor's children. Break down the latest.
So the defense team for Tyler Robinson wanted the entire Utah County Attorney's Office recused from this case after learning a child of one of the prosecutors was at the Turning Point event where Charlie Kirk was assassinated, arguing their attendance influenced decisions in this case. But the judge disagreed, ruling earlier today they can stay on.
Turmoil. I mean, prosecutors, they've cited DNA evidence and text messages from Robinson to his partner, where he allegedly stated he was fed up with the hatred that Kirk promoted. Suspect to me. There's the presumption of innocence. Judge, what was his name? Tony Graf. He recently banned cameras in the filming of Robinson in restraints during the pretrial hearings to prevent biased media coverage from tainting a potential jury pool. Very weird. That's not 21st century coverage of a trial. And then, like I said, you have the Candace Owens dossier, the Egypt and Israel theories. Because Candace, she's moved from beyond questioning the lone gunman narrative, leaning into what she calls this deep betrayal involving foreign intelligence. And then she started talking about Egyptian planes. She shocked her audience last year by claiming that Egyptian military surveillance planes had been tracking Erika Kirk since 2022. And she alleged that one of these planes was powered on at the Provo airport just minutes after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, suggesting that this high-level extraction or monitoring operation. And then there's the Israeli donor text. The focus has shifted to like this leaked group chats alleging that involved Charlie Kirk and this pro-Israel donor. And these texts purportedly leaked by a former counterintelligence guy, Joe Kent. And it suggested that Charlie Kirk was under this immense financial pressure to align his rhetoric with specific foreign interests just before his death. I don't know. Now, of course, the relationship between the Kirk family and Candace Owens it's openly hostile. Openly hostile. I'd really love to know what you guys think about all this because, like I said, I didn't come to the show today with any agenda or direction. I just wanted to put all this stuff out there and I don't know. And then you get these guys together. Oh, it's crazy. Like when Candace goes on Tucker or Candace or Baron Coleman goes on Candace or Jimmy Dury and Candace start talking. Now you got two people in the room talking crazy.
Baron Coleman, none other than Baron Coleman here in studio. Guys, just get ready. It's an exceptional amount of rabbit holes that we have to jump through today. I told you yesterday that we received a tip and it just made my mind go poof. So much happening here, so many connections. Baron, you have done fantastic work digging into Charlie Kirk's assassination. You would think the feds would do that, but apparently it's not their job.
No, we've had to decentralize the investigation a little bit.
Right, and I think they're nervous.
That not only are they nervous, I think they're terrified.
Right, and I are you of the opinion that this is going to be resolved one day?
Not to the satisfaction of a lot of people, but I think to a certain extent, yeah, it's going to be.
Yeah, well, let's just start with just some news. You heard the same thing that I heard. Turning Point USA did a massive purge of employees a few days ago, or at the end of, I guess, last week, you could say.
I mean, that video goes on a long way. I'm not going to show it all, but I just wanted to show you that now these conspiracy theorists are collaborating and doing shows together and watching each other's shows and bouncing ideas off each other. Oh, Candace learned this and I learned this, and they're sharing. Like Candace, she had released some leaked audio of an internal TPUSA Zoom call featuring Erika Kirk. It was just, recorded just after the funeral. And Owens characterized Eric's tone as disturbingly upbeat, and she framed the quick leadership transition as evidence of a pre-planned coup within the organization. And you had the story about Andrew Colvett. It was like a tarmac hug where, it was just something weird that happened out on the tarmac. Candace Owens, she's publicly challenged the timeline of events on the day of the shooting, specifically questioning the tarmac hug between him and Erika Kirk in Provo. And she claims flight logs and group chat timestamps and suggests he may have been on the same plane as Erika Kirk, which contradicted some of his other public statements. It's just getting weird, people. But let's be honest, Turning Point USA, they're standing firmly behind Erika Kirk, of course. At this point, with all this information and news and evidence coming out about Erika Kirk, it seems like she would step down. The longer she stays in as CEO, the more the investigations are going to grow, the deeper people are going to go down that rabbit hole. It's all over TikTok. People just aren't buying it. TPUSA is calling Candace Owens a vulture, that she's vulture-like, and she's prioritizing her own platform over the actual justice. Conspiratorial noise, they're calling it. And they think it's giving Tyler Robinson's defense exactly what it needs, which is reasonable doubt. I don't know. Tell me what you guys think. I know what I think. I think it's a crazy world out there. I listen to Candace a lot. Like I said, it doesn't mean that I'm in the rabbit hole, but it's entertaining and it's filled with new information every day. But other than that, you guys take care. Chop it up in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you at the next show.